Hey guys, welcome to another episode of The Sweet House. I am sitting down with somebody you need to hear from. From Hollywood sets to everyday adventures, there is nothing too adventurous or challenging for this amazing stunt woman. Kimberly Shannon Murphy is in Nashville, and that's a big deal. So, I'm happy that you're here. It's CMA Fest week, and it's wild. So you are jumping right into the madness. How have you enjoyed Nashville for the past 24 hours?
I've seen the hotel and a restaurant. It's awesome.
Yeah. Well, coming from LA, because during the pandemic, everybody moved from LA to Nashville.
Yes.
You didn't want to come?
I really love where I live. I live outside of LA, and we have a lot of land, and it's like my little commune.
The main thing that people said when they moved from LA to Nashville is that they were over the mansion tax. And so that's why they came to Nashville, so they wouldn't have to pay the mansion tax.
We have a lot of taxes.
Yeah, there's a lot of taxes. So that's a good reason to move to Tennessee. Well, something really cool about Shannon is that she has been in over 100 feature films, TV shows, and you're just really out here doing it. And you've been doing this for a long time. So she is the top of her game for this. And you've been in some of my favorite shows, Big Little Lies. You've also been in one of my favorite movie series, is Hunger Games. And so talk to me a little bit about which one of those is your favorite of my favorites. And what was it like to actually do the stunts in those? Do you have like one that you loved more?
I hate to disappoint you, but I only worked on Big Little Lies for one day, and I worked on Euphoria for one day.
So when you work on them for one day, how many times do you have to keep repeating the stunts? Is it like over and over again, or what if you nail it on the first go round?
I always nail it on the first go around.
I told y'all she was like a stunt woman extraordinaire. That's just it. So.
But it just depends, like which angles they're getting, how good the director is, all those things. I doubled for Hunter on Euphoria.
Yeah.
The blonde.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So what'd you do? Which part of this? Because I need to go back and watch it so I can look for you.
She like fell off a bike.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So do you ever hurt yourself? Like, do you intend to fall off the bike? Like, how does this work? Like, I wonder that.
I just fall off the bike.
You just fall off the bike. I'm like, so you're like basically like my 2-year-old who just falls.
That's
and
correct.
She never hurts herself.
Yes.
And then you just get up and you look like this.
Sometimes.
So, so have you ever had anything crazy happen when you like are doing stunts?
Yeah, I've had some things happen. I've had a really long career, so things do happen.
Are you scared when you do these things, or do you just do them?
I just do them. I mean, the thing is we don't show up to work and we're like, oh, surprise, you're jumping off a building. It's like if we're doing something big, it's always rehearsed. We always know what's happening. It's never like off the cuff, like that kind of thing.
So do you join table reads for scripts or anything like that? What's the preparation?
No, we're not invited to those.
Oh,
no.
So do you get to meet? So do you know the actors and the actresses and the directors and everybody beforehand? Or is it just like you show up as a model, like models do? Like when I model, so when I show up to a set and they're just like, okay, here are your outfits, get to it. Is it like that, or what's it like?
It depends. I mean, have actresses that I've doubled for years, so that I've been with for a long time, and I'm in their contracts. So for that, I'm obviously already know them, and
So it's a package deal. So when they book said actress, you're automatically in there.
Yes.
So, but I'm sure it took you years to get to that point of where you can just be the package deal with so-and-so. So
it took me a few years, not too long, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I want to talk about how you got into this, because when you're a kid, you don't say, I want to grow up and be a stunt woman in most cases. So what did you want to be when you were a kid?
Oh, gosh. I don't really know what I wanted to be when I was a kid. And I didn't know that stunt work existed. I was a dancer and an acrobat, and sort of met a coordinator who was working in New York and got my first job doing that. I had no idea anything about the business. I had no idea that stunts even existed. So, yeah.
Well, I saw that you were an acrobat. So did you do any sort of training for that when you were younger? Did you do gymnastics or anything like that? So you just...
Yes.
And dance. What type of dance did you do?
I was with Alvin Ailey, so I did modern and ballet.
Oh, wow. I actually just saw Alvin Ailey at TPAC last month, and it was absolutely amazing.
They're
and then I
amazing.
got up at 5 a.m. the next morning to go run a 5K. So,
Oh, my goodness.
yeah. But I was inspired because I just love when people are doing art versus a traditional 9 to 5 where you're sitting in a cube. It's like these are also jobs that people need to see, especially younger people, because we didn't get the option when we were younger, per se, to say, I want to be a stunt woman or I want to do certain careers because they just weren't as visible. So, but now you can listen to The Sweet House and hear from the stunt woman extraordinaire on how she got into this. And so it's really cool. But it also, as a mom of a 2-year-old, I always wonder, how soon do we get them into doing things? Like, how soon should she hop into dance? So how soon did you get into dance and acrobatics and all of that?
I was really young, and I want my daughter to, she's extremely athletic, but I'm rein her. I don't want her to be a competitive gymnast. I don't want her to do any of the things that I did, actually. Just because it's a really hard lifestyle to be a competitive gymnast, and there's not a lot of reward on the other side unless you become, the best in the world, which is obviously very slim.
Unless you can become a Simone Biles.
Exactly.
So, but I want to be Simone Biles in my last life.
I mean, she's amazing.
Yeah, so we do have the Fisk gymnastics team here in Nashville, and they're all amazing too. They're like the local celebrities.
Okay.
And so I always look at them and I'm like, maybe that will be Rain. Rain's my 2-year-old.
Okay.
So, or maybe she could just be you. So who knows? But I love that you hopped into this journey. Well, not necessarily hopped, because you obviously done the legwork to being a Hollywood stunt woman. But what are some of the challenges that you faced early on in your career?
I think in any career, especially in Hollywood, it's difficult to be a woman in general. And especially when I started, it was a lot different world than it is now. And as a stunt woman, we struggle with things that stunt men don't struggle with because they're always fully clothed and that sort of thing. So, usually, especially in the beginning of my career, you get to set and your outfit is like a mini skirt and heels. And then they're like, okay, you're going to do a car hit, or you're going to be, sprinting all day in heels down a cobblestone street. So, it's a difficult job at times.
Is it a physically fit job to be a stunt woman, or are some of the stunts just things that actors and actresses choose not to do and they would prefer to have somebody step in to be their character?
Sometimes, but you have to be physically fit to do this job, 100%.
So what does your training look like? To keep yourself ready to go for any of the roles.
Yeah. I mean, back then it was a lot different than it is now. I have my black belts in Taekwondo and was still, especially when I started, still really active in like dancing and gymnastics and yoga. Kind of, I like to do a mix of everything.
So what you're telling me is that I don't need to mess with you.
No.
What you're telling me is I need to mind my business and make sure I ask the right questions. Otherwise, I'm going to get beat up.
No, I wouldn't be.
No. So I'm sure you've traveled all around the world doing several different projects. So what's been your favorite place around the world?
I spent a lot of time in Spain, and I really loved it there.
What were you filming there?
Night and day. We filmed in most of it in Spain.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Well, she is a stunt woman extraordinaire, and we could continue to talk about that all night long. But I want to talk about your book, which is right here. It's called Glimmer, A Story of Survival, Hope, and Healing. And I was actually reading one of your interviews where you mentioned that the things that you endured as a child, not only did you survive, but they put you into a motion of thriving, which I love. Cue the music from Destiny's Child, I'm a Survivor. So come on, dance woman. I like to dance too. But I love that you said that, because it's sometimes when you say survivor, it sounds victimized, especially like you said, a lot of the work that you do it's a man's world.
Yeah.
And so as a woman being able to tell your authentic truth, sometimes it's very much so just you feel almost just beneath it all. But when you said thrive, that just puts you into a whole nother realm. So what does that mean to you?
It means speaking my truth and standing firm in it and being able to show up as my authentic self and not somebody else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And to give you guys some background on this, the book really talks about how you were recovering from childhood sexual abuse at the hands of your grandfather. And so that's not something that's easy to say out loud or digest, period. So what age did you feel like you were willing to be vocal about this?
Well, I did have repressed memories. So I spoke out when I was 15 about it, when I started having more severe memories that were just really confusing to me.
And who did you talk to when you were 15?
My mom.
Yeah. Did she believe you, or what was that conversation like?
She did, because at the same time she was having memories about her father.
How old was she at this point?
40.
Okay. So do you guys have a good relationship now?
We don't talk anymore.
Okay. Gotcha. And so another interview you did, I saw where you were talking about the generational trauma that a lot of families can have when they're trying to have these conversations. And so it actually, I saw this one excerpt in your book where you're actually talking to your grandmother. And what's funny is I was not going to ask you about this. And then today I opened your book and I opened it to that exact page. And so I do believe in divine timing. And so I was like, obviously God wants me to talk about this because I opened it to this page.
Yeah.
Because a lot of this book is very in-depth and it is like graphic in a sense. And so in this particular part, I do want to read. It says, my grandmother scoffs, throwing her hands up. Well, I don't have herpes. I stand up too fast, toppling against the sofa arm. Righting myself, I face her. Are you saying I'm lying? Grandma Jan won't look at me. She stiffens straighter, tilts her head and says dryly, I've never called you a liar, have I? I've always believed you. Don't you think that's a little strange? I snap. I'm pacing now, each step a burst of clarifying pain. If someone were to tell me my dad did what he did, I'd say they had to be lying. And so I read this and I'm like, you just told me that you told your mom first and then you had this confrontation with your grandmother. Did your mom ever try to tell your grandmother? And just based off of what I know, I guess this is your mom's dad who did this to both of you all.
Yeah, yes.
And so did your mom ever try to have that conversation with her mom?
When she was little?
Yeah.
No, but my aunt did. My aunt came forward when she was 9 and told my grandmother that he was abusing her.
Did your grandmother believe her?
I think so, but nothing was ever done about it.
And do you feel like it was just a sign of the times that nothing was done about it within families? Or do you feel like it's still a prominent thing that is happening in families today that needs to be a more centralized conversation?
It's definitely a prominent thing that's still happening. Yeah.
And so how do you talk to your daughter about encountering any of these things, whether it's in the family or externally?
Well, I think it's all about how we raise our children and to have open conversations with them, to talk to them about their body parts, what their body parts are called, actually use the correct name for their body parts, have the conversation where you are the only one that is allowed to touch your body. No one's allowed to touch your body. We have those conversations all the time. And I think when you're treated poorly as a child and you're abused, you can't decipher what's right and wrong. And I know that I'm raising my child where if someone treats her badly, she's going to know that it's wrong.
Does she talk to you now openly about anything that do you feel like that relationship is much different than the one you had with your mom and your grandmother in terms of breaking generational curses?
Yes.
So what are you doing to open that conversation? What would you say to someone like me who's got a 2-year-old? Like, how soon do you start talking to your kids?
right away. As soon as they can. I mean, I started talking to her probably around that age, you know?
Yeah.
Because especially when they're not really vocal, but they can understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
It's just it's just part of our dialogue, you know, not all the time, but I think it's a really important conversation that mothers need to have with their children. So the biggest thing I tell my daughter is that not all adults are safe. And even if they're your teacher or your coach, or they have to earn your trust, and that just because they're in a position of authority does not mean that you automatically have to trust this person. And as far as my daughter knowing about my situation, there were things that were happening in my family that were really unhealthy. And because she is coming from such an authentic space, because I have created that for her, it was very confusing for her. And she was asking a lot of questions. And obviously I was writing my book at the time. And so my husband had said to her, she's like, I want to know, Mommy, like what you're writing about. I want to know. And I was nervous because she was at the time 7. And I just said to her, you know how Mommy and Daddy's number one job is to protect you. And God, I get emotional every time I say this.
It's okay.
And she said, yeah.
So far away, I'd hold your hands.
And I just said, or my husband actually said to her, well, when no one protected Mommy when she was little and she got hurt. And she just said, like, who hurt you? And I said, you know, Mina, which is what she calls my mom, Dad. And she just said, did he hurt you with his hands, or did he hurt you with his hands, or did he hurt your heart? And I said, both. And like, that was it. That's all she needed. She gave me a big hug and she said, Mom, I'm so sorry. And I've said this before, it was like in that moment that I realized how easy the truth is and how much we try to protect our children when we're actually doing the opposite.
Yeah. And I feel like to some sense they've been here before.
Oh, yeah.
There's just like, even if I cough, my daughter says, Mommy, okay?
Yeah.
Okay? And I'm just like, oh man, here we go. Like that little voice just does something to my soul. Yeah. But I did want to ask you one more question, because we talk about protecting our daughters from sexual abuse, but there's also a layer that we need to discuss with our boys to handle their sexuality in a certain way too, or sexual experiences in a certain way too. So have you ever had those conversations with friends who have boys, or just men in your life, or your husband, about what that looks like?
For younger boys, you mean?
Just men, and processing things that may have happened to them, or younger boys.
Talking about their traumas and things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that our mental health is really something that's becoming the forefront of the conversation, which I think is amazing. And I think more men are starting to speak out about their traumas. And I think it's like a chain, right? Once one person speaks out, it gives the strength to someone else for them to speak out. And that's literally the reason I wrote this book, is to give people the permission and to hopefully give them a little bit of my strength to feel like they can speak their truth, because that is truly when the healing journey starts, is when we can really be honest about what has happened to us, and we can really look at it and really start working on how to heal it.
Did it cause any rifts with your family to tell your story?
Yes, it did. I lost all of them one at a time. Yeah. And that was really hard, but also with that, I found myself.
And do you feel like your career path as a stunt woman and the things that you've had to face, like even when I hear you just say, well, I just fell off the bike, was it that easy, or not necessarily? I don't think easy is the word. Was it that smooth for you to be able to start talking about it to people, to your friends, to your family members, or to other people? Did you just become fearless overnight in talking about it? No,
I just think that vocalizing it made it a reality for me to be able to say it out loud. It made it true. When I was holding it in, I felt like, am I making this up? Is this something that didn't really happen, or did it happen? And when I said it out loud, it changed my life for me.
I also read where you said journaling helped you process it a lot. And Cameron Diaz, who's actually someone that you've been a stunt double for, but she's also a good friend of yours. I read that you turned over your journals to her, and I actually want to read this excerpt from your book. In the early years of our friendship, part of me was afraid Cameron would figure out what a mess I was, emotionally speaking. But when she asked to see some of my writing, I couldn't help myself. The very next day, I dropped a thick stack of pages filled with graphic descriptions of my childhood abuse and some pretty gory revenge fantasies with her doorman. The regret swooped in as soon as I left the building. Surely I just doomed our friendship. Now she'd just pity me or think I was a psychopath. I couldn't decide which was worse. So what made you open up to Cameron? Like, how did you guys flourish this friendship from just being colleagues to friends to trusted friends, almost like sisters in a sense, to where you were willing to hand over your journals? I think we've all been little girls with diaries and journals, and we're like, nope, no one's ever going to see this. No.
Yeah.
So what was that like to go through, or just to develop that type of friendship with her?
She felt really safe to me from the moment I met her, and I had not had anybody in my life like that ever. And I just felt drawn to share things with her. And yes, it was probably like a little over the top at the time. Like I wouldn't behave that way now with all of the work I've done on myself. But then it just felt like this person is so incredible, and I feel so safe around her. I feel like she's someone who makes me want to be a better person. And I just wanted to share it with her. And, you know, it turned out to be a lifelong friendship. And she's been such a support to me in this space of me telling my story and being there for me. And so I don't regret doing it.
Had you told other friends that behaved differently after you told them?
Behave differently towards me?
Yeah.
No. I have a really good friend group, and everyone has always been really supportive and loving around this subject for me. And so I have not had that experience. No. Yeah.
Well, I just was wondering, because you mentioned that you were just like kind of afraid of what she would say. And so you said now you probably wouldn't do it that way as a 40-something-year-old. So how old were you then when you handed it over to her?
25.
Oh, so you guys have been friends for a long time.
Yes.
So how did you guys become friends?
We met on the set of What Happens in Vegas.
And so I have been having conversations a lot here recently about friendship, especially adult friendship, because it's not necessarily the easiest thing to navigate, especially when you're in careers like what you have, where you're always traveling, or if you've just moved to a new city. And sometimes it's hard to decipher who's really in your corner.
Yeah.
So what advice would you have for people who are trying to develop adult friendships with people? Is it just the feeling that you feel, kind of like how you describe your meetup with Cameron Diaz, or what's that like?
I just really looked up to her. You always want to be friends with people who are someone that you'd like to become, or someone that you'd like to grow, you know, somebody that has done more work than you, kind of thing. And that's how I felt about her. I had a really hard time making eye contact just because of my abuse and what I had been through. It was really hard for me to look someone in the eyes. And I talk about this in the book. And it was something I saw her do the first day I met her. She looked everybody in the eyes and spoke to everyone. And I remember feeling kind of jealous of it, because I was like, oh my gosh, she looks everyone in the eyes. And I had such a hard time. And then since that day, I've been working on that, and now I can do it. But it was really hard for me, and a really big struggle for me for a long time.
Yeah. I think that's a great point, to actually be able to look somebody in their eyes and have a good connection with them and just feel their energy. So I'm a huge energy person. So I'm like, as soon as I meet somebody, I can feel and tell whether this is my person or not. But life happens with friendships, and friendships grow apart, and then you move and you meet new people and all kinds of stuff. But it's just been such a hot topic. And then when I was reading some of your excerpts in your book talking about how you guys cultivated that relationship, I wanted to make sure we shared that part of your story, because it is, and especially with you in entertainment, it's not necessarily the easiest place to pick up a friend, and to pick up a celebrity friend at that.
Yes.
Do you have other celebrity friends that you're really, really close to? Are you going to join Real Housewives of Beverly Hills? That's what we need to know.
I'm not, but they should all read my book because they have a lot of trauma.
Yes, you guys need to read her book. Period. It's really, everybody needs to read your book. It just has so much good stuff in it.
Thank you.
Yeah. But who are some of your other celebrity friends that you have met that you've just been in awe of? Because I love the point that you brought out that you choose friends that you look up to. Yeah. It's like your circle needs to be full of people that you aspire to grow with.
Yeah. I definitely never want to be the smartest person in the room.
No. Well, that's a good one. I've actually had a lot of conversations around how all of us carry envy with us, but how we act on the envy is a huge part of our lives. And so we can all be jealous of our friends, but it's like, do you act on it in a certain way?
Right.
And so how do you maintain having some peace and integrity amidst your friendships without wanting what they have or just aspiring too much to be who they are?
I've never felt that way. I think jealousy is an insecurity that is within yourself and has nothing to do with the other person. So I think if you're feeling that way, you need to ask yourself what is triggering inside of me that is making me feel jealousy towards this person. It's like you're saying, we all have it, right? It's part of being a human that we all get jealous, but it's like, where is that coming from and where is it originating from and what am I missing inside myself that is making me feel jealous towards this person instead of being proud of them and supporting them and, trying to push them up. And
I think it takes a very strong person to be able to make that call out, though.
Yes.
It takes a healed person.
It does.
And speaking of, you say your journals are what healed or helped to heal you. Yeah. Do you have any other techniques that you like to use? What's your favorite workout? I love hot yoga and just running. And yes. So what else did you do to come to this place of healing?
Taekwondo is a huge one for me because you get to punch a lot of stuff. And I think I needed to do that for a long time.
How old were you when you started that?
I was 26 when I started and then got my black belt 12 years later.
Oh, God.
But it was good to, punch things and pretend that they were people's faces that I wanted to. It was very healing for me. But I started doing psychedelic work about 2 years ago, which for me has been a very...
What's it called? Ashwagandha? Is that
ayahuasca? I don't do ayahuasca. There's different types of psychedelic therapy. Ayahuasca is one of them, but I have not done ayahuasca.
Okay. I read Jada Pinkett's book and she did that.
Oh, she did ayahuasca? Okay.
Yeah. So, and her journey was pretty interesting.
Yeah.
She described it all. And then I think Will Smith also did it too. So, yeah.
It's becoming very popular in the world, and certain things are legal now. Like I've done ketamine treatments. Ketamine is legal in the United States now. And it literally just rewires your brain, right? So our brain development starts when obviously we're young. And when you have had abuse in your life, like I have, my brain did not develop the way that it would have developed if I wasn't being abused. And so doing the journeys and doing the medicine is helping kind of rewire my brain. The way I like to say it is it makes you see things for what they are, not for what you want them to be or through the lens that you would like it to be. It actually shows you what the situation actually is.
Yeah. So would you say talk therapy is also helpful?
I did talk therapy for a long time, and I do think that it's helpful. But for me personally, with the severe trauma that I suffered, it just wasn't enough anymore. I needed something more.
Gotcha. You performed stunts on Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Top Gun Maverick, and those are high energy movies.
Yeah.
Do you remember any pivotal moments from those movies that you want to share?
Oh boy. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood was one of my favorite films I've ever done because I got to work with Quentin and he's brilliant. And just the whole sequence we did at the end of the movie we probably rehearsed for 4 months. And Quentin is very, he wasn't we weren't kind of sure how the scene was going to play out or what he might want in the scene. And we had dogs in the scene. So we all trained with the dogs for like 3 months and we all did bites with the pit bulls and stuff. And that was a really cool experience. I had never, had a pit bull attached to my arm before. Yeah,
I'm afraid of pit bulls, so it's a no for me.
Yeah. I mean, it's a real thing. If you get bit by a pit bull, just don't move, like for real.
I'm good.
No, it's a real thing. Yeah, they're very strong animals, extremely strong animals. Yeah.
I've actually gotten bit by a dog before.
You have?
So, yeah, I was running through my husband. He was my boyfriend at the time. I was running through his neighborhood in Memphis and got bit by a dog.
Oh, geez.
I've never been afraid of dogs, but I am now.
Yeah.
Because I thought these were nice, friendly neighborhood dogs. Oh, no.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm like, I'm good.
I'm good, yeah.
Yeah.
No, the dogs are trained. So we had 3 dogs. One was Brad's dog, which we weren't allowed to do bites with because he filmed with the dog all the time. And so they didn't want to confuse the dog. So, and then just bite him randomly. And then, so the dog had basically the dog had stunt doubles. And we worked with one attack dog that was, trained to, we would do like have covers on our arms and it would know, like you would basically feed your limb to the dog and it would clamp on. And once it clamps on, it does not clamp off until the trainer tells it to.
So you're actually getting all the sensations of the bite essentially till the trainer says, oh, no.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
See, you're just too brave for me. You're way too brave for me. But speaking of what that's like to work on dangerous sets or essentially like challenging sets, I wanted to talk about Alec Baldwin's ongoing trial. Because I read a headline that said convicted Russ Armour Hannah Gutierrez Reed, who's serving an 18-month jail sentence, she made the statement that she also wants to see him in jail. So what are your thoughts?
Alec, did she say that?
Yeah, she said she wanted to see him in jail. And so it's just interesting to me because she was in charge of handling the safety essentially. And he's the actor. And so none of us know what that's like. All we do is watch the movies.
Right.
So from your experience being on the set, what is that like as far as responsibility and just the movement on the set? I know there's a lot of people and a lot happening. It's like, what are your thoughts on it?
That should have never happened. There is a protocol that's in place when we have a gun on set. There is never... I don't know how there was live rounds on set, period. We never have live rounds on set. It's always blanks. So the fact that there were live rounds in the gun is insane to me. The protocol is the armor, which was her job, is to show, like to open the gun, to show that the gun is clear or empty, or that there's a blank in there and there's a discussion and the first AD, there, it goes down all the checklists. As far as, I wasn't there, so I don't know what happened that day. I'll just say that. But I do believe that I know that she wasn't qualified for the job. I do know that just from...
Does that happen a lot?
No. No. Yeah. I believe her dad is an armorer and he's pretty like established in the business. So I think that's probably how she got the job. But, somebody hired her.
Somebody hired her.
Somebody
should be held accountable.
I think so.
And not necessarily the actor per se.
Yeah.
Would you say?
Yeah. I mean, the producers, the director, whoever, normally the producers hired her, in my opinion, and it's just my opinion, should have had some repercussions for them as well. Because, when you're young, like I've said yes to jobs when I was much younger that maybe I look back on now where I'm like, oh, maybe I wasn't the most qualified person to do that specific job. And I would never do that now, knowing what I know about the business. But in her defense, she's young and she was given this job, but somebody hired her. And so I don't know.
Yeah.
It's kind of a weird thing.
It's a scary place to be. And even as fearless as you are, knowing that this is a possibility for future references, hopefully not.
It's definitely not a possibility.
No. Well, this is just an anomaly situation.
Yeah.
But just saying, like, does that make you scared to continue to do what you do? Or is there some shockwave of fear across the industry after all of this?
I think there was a lot of it was shocking to everybody because, like I said, there's never live rounds on set, so I don't know how they even got in the gun.
Yeah. Did you guys question it as in an entire industry? Has there just been a lot of talk about it?
Yeah, and a lot of shows stopped doing. So now with like AI and everything that the computers can do, a lot of shows just stopped using ammo, anything in the gun, and so they'll just fake it. But I was on NCIS at the time, and we stayed with using blanks and using a gun, but our armor is amazing, and it's nothing that we ever worried about.
You feel like you're in good hands.
Yeah.
Well, I love that. I did have one last question, because you said if I had my book in my hands at 15, my life would be very different. You say that I would not have felt like I wasn't going to make it to 30. I would have had hope that somebody who had gone through something as horrific as I did could have a future and have a family and could be happy. But now at the age of 46, you got your future with a husband and a beautiful daughter.
Yeah.
And so what does that feel like after all that you've been able to accomplish? A lot, over 100 different movies and shows, and surviving abuse and being able to have difficult conversations and having public authenticity, which is not easy.
Yeah.
So what does it feel like to have made this statement and to see where you are now, where you're sharing your story through this book that you all need to pick up tonight, and doing podcast interviews and just being so vocal when a lot of people can't do that. A lot of people just are not even able to come to terms with anything.
I think we're all capable of coming to terms with things. And I think that it starts from speaking our truth, and whatever that means on whatever level for you, it's different for everybody. I obviously chose to do it in a very public way, and I don't regret that.
Yeah.
And, you know, not to be cliche or whatever, but as Snoop says, I'd like to thank me.
No, I saw that and I felt that on Mother's Day. I actually almost made a social media post that said, I'd actually like to thank me for all the things that I've been through.
100%.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, no, it's not cliche. I love that. That's one of my favorite quotes now. I'd like to thank me for the Sweet House, where we're having candid conversations, where we're getting down to the nitty gritty of how we heal, how we address the things that all of us are facing, because that's why I started the Sweet House, so people could come into this house and have these candid conversations. So thank you so much, Kimberly Shannon, for sitting here and just having this conversation with us. She is off to LA as we speak, you guys. She's not stunting, y'all. She's actually telling the truth when it comes to this book and when it comes to this podcast. So thank you, Kimberly Shannon Murphy, for showing up and giving us your truth. It's beautiful.
Thank you.
That's all that you need to do in this world, is live your truth, to live your best life.
And find yourself, and then thank yourself.
Yes, and thank yourself. Snoop Dogg, we'd like to thank you. For helping us thank ourselves.
Yes, exactly.
Well, thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Again.